Your investments are at risk. There is no way to avoid risk in this world. But there is one thing you can do that virtually eliminates any form of risk, one type of investment. Of course, we're going to talk about that, but you guys have asked many, many times, what is counterparty risk? We hear that term thrown around, in particular in the precious metals sector. We hear it all the time, but what is it? I'm going to break it down for you in very simple terms so you can understand it and understand what level of risk you're taking potentially with your investments. Welcome to Ron's Basement. Glad you're here. Let's get started right now. All investments include a certain degree of counterparty risk, and that's on top of the normal risk you take when you buy a stock or make any type of investment. What is counterparty risk? Let's talk about it briefly, and then I want to tell you about one investment you can make that almost eliminates all counterparty risk. But let's just say you come over to the basement. You get an exclusive invite. I throw Jerome Powell out of here. I even move the bear over so you got a nice place to sit. We hang out for a while, and then I hit you up with something a little uncomfortable. I say, it's costing me a lot of money to run this YouTube channel, and I was wondering, do you think you might be willing to borrow me $10,000? I'll pay you back in 1 year, and I'll even pay you 10% interest. So in 1 year, I'll pay you back $11,000. You feel very uncomfortable, but since you're so rich, and you do keep a little fiat money around, you decide to give me the $10,000. Your counterparty risk is me. You're relying on me to be able to pay that money back to you. That is counterparty risk. When you put money in a bank, you're putting faith in the bank that they will be able to pay you back. When you put money into a brokerage account, you are putting faith in the broker that they're going to do what you tell them to do, buy what you tell them to buy, and that they're going to hold that and that they will have your money when you decide to sell and take your money out. It's a fundamental risk that occurs in any transaction between two parties. I want you to think about that pile of silver and gold you have sitting in front of you right now, because we're going to talk about that later in the video. But first, I want to mention, thank you for joining me here in Ron's Basement. I especially want to say hi to our friend, one of many. He's a regular viewer, and he is, just like you and I, one of many. It's me and you right now. Don't forget, I walk down those steps thinking about you. It makes me smile. It gives me energy to make these videos. You are special. It's me and you right now from wherever in the world you are. You're always welcome. If you like my video, please subscribe now. Back to counterparty risk, because sometimes, and you may have noticed this lately, things go wrong, right? Maybe you'd invested in Enron. Maybe you'd invested in any number of other companies that went bust. Those managers, they weren't real good stewards of your capital. Even countries in the past have defaulted on their sovereign debt. I would imagine at the fall of the Roman Empire, the Romans owed some people some money and said, well, sorry, So the people that had loaned money to the Romans, well, that was their counterparty risk. The Roman Empire, they were always going to be around. They were always going to pay their bills until they didn't. Don't you forget about that pile of silver and gold, but I want to talk about one more fascinating recent example of counterparty risk. It's happening right now. Let's say 2 months ago, you and I were having coffee and we said, you know what? Let's buy some Bitcoin. I think that's a great idea. We both decided to put $100,000 into Bitcoin. So we were taking risk with the price of Bitcoin going up and down, but we needed somebody to facilitate the transaction. So we found this great company, very well respected, looked up to, called FTX. You may have heard of them. They've been in the news lately. They were a crypto exchange. We sent them a cashier's check, each of us, for $100,000 and bought $100,000 worth of Bitcoin because they were going to be the stewards of our capital. They were going to be kind of like a big financial, like a Vanguard or a Fidelity, right? They were going to facilitate that transaction and hold our Bitcoin for us. We could trust them. I mean, Bill Clinton was best friends with that Sam Friedman Bank, and Fortune magazine, the CEO of FTX, was on the cover of Fortune magazine with the headline, "The Next Warren Buffett." So we send them our $100,000. We put through our purchase order. We get our Bitcoin, we think, being held by FTX until about 2 weeks ago when we get the news that the company is just a big fraud. We had counterparty risk with FTX. It wound up being a big fraud, and our investment is most likely now worth nothing. Doesn't matter what the price of Bitcoin is. We were taking that risk primarily, but we had counterparty risk relying upon FTX to steward our capital, and they didn't do a good job. I'm going to tell you one last time, don't forget about that pile of silver and gold you have in front of you. One last quick example of counterparty risk. If you're married, you are taking a risk. You entered a contract with another person that you were going to stay together forever, right? But you have to rely on that other person. My wife, Susie, I'm relying on her. I have some counterparty risk with her and her with me as well. But I'm really grateful that I have such a wonderful marriage with my wife, Susie, even though we don't agree upon the fact of when the blindfold's going to come off the bear. I am sure that I said $3,500, and she is sure that I said $2,500. If you remember, please leave a comment in the comment section below. And what about that pile of silver and gold you have in front of you right now? That represents one of the very few investment options with almost no counterparty risk. You're not relying on anybody to hold on to that gold and silver except for yourself. It's yours. It's in your possession. It's not on some electronic exchange. It's not in some vault somewhere. It's sitting right in front of you right now. The only person you have to rely on to steward that capital is you. And guess what? It has held its value for almost 5,000 years. I think it's a pretty good proposition. Counterparty risk is real, and it is present in almost any and all investment options. Again, gold and silver, they represent the one option that almost eliminates counterparty risk. Hey, thanks for joining me in Ron's Basement. You are always welcome here, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.